now for the Black Firehouse podcast, the only Ghostbusters podcast that discusses props, costumes, sets, and special effects, with your hosts, Austin Young and Dan Harshman.
You know, it's just occurred to me we really haven't had a completely successful test of this equipment.
I blame myself.
So do I. Let's get ready. Switch me on.
Good morning to all of our listeners out there, and welcome back to Session 8 of the Black Firehouse podcast. My name, of course, is Dan Harshman. As always, joining me today is my good friend and co-host, partner in crime, obsessive-compulsive brethren, Austin Young. Austin, how are you?
I'm here, finally.
You're here finally. You're having some technical difficulties.
Not technical difficulties, just difficulties getting home so that I can record this damn thing.
How dare you have a social life?
It's not. It's not even a social life. It's just like having to run errands and then nothing goes the way it's supposed to, and then having to readjust my plan, and then that doesn't work, and you know how it goes sometimes.
I do, and I totally understand. It's been it's been a crazy week, so
yeah,
I'm excited though. I got a new job.
Yeah, congratulations.
So same. Thank you. Yeah, same field that I was already in, but more money and working from home. So I've been working today.
Like working from home for the foreseeable future.
For forever, actually.
Excellent.
Yeah, it is a permanent work-from-home position with this company because the office is actually in Illinois. So when they hired me, it was like, you don't have an office to report to. You will be permanently working from home. So right now I've been converting my my little painting desk in my bedroom into a at-home office, which has been really, really interesting, except for the part where my Proton Pack tried to take off my big toe today.
Ouch.
And it was entirely my fault. Yeah, yeah. Luckily, I came away with it with just a little nick, but I have the bottom of my thrower hooked onto the pack. And then the pack is sitting on its back, but it's sitting on like a rolling stool. And when I rolled it, I wasn't paying attention, and it completely came uncradled and fell. And that aluminum just skimmed my big toe. And you've worked with aluminum pieces, you know how sharp those edges can become. And when you have something that it's the gun track and the V-hook and the bottom plate of a thrower, it's got some decent weight behind it.
Especially,
I don't think enough to...
Like, if you're trying to be super screen accurate, a lot of those edges aren't nice and cleaned up. They're just razor sharp.
None of them are sanded down. They are, because this is not a Ghostbusters 2 setup. So, yeah, that went thunk and took a nice little chunk out of the floor. But I was just like, man, that could have been really, really bad. I wasn't even working on anything. I was just moving shit around.
You could have been recording this episode from a hospital bed right now.
I would have done it. And we would have had technical difficulties and had to restart over and over and over again and gotten sucked back into our hell.
No, we would have done this live through Facebook or something on Tuesday if we had to.
Oh, that would have been fun. Oh, we should do a live show soon.
One day.
That's what we should do. We should do a live show for session 10. Because this is session 8. So maybe if we advertise it, we can do a live show. That would be fun. You want to do that?
Are we talking live show with video and everything, or just audio, or what?
I don't know.
Let's let the viewers vote.
We'll let the viewers vote, and then you can tear your hair out because you don't have an appropriate backdrop yet.
Oh, I'll make an appropriate backdrop. It might have weird stuff
you'll make
like Mystery Science Theater 3000 robots dressed up as Ghostbusters characters.
That's all right.
But it'll be.
I mean, my background is going to end up being my bedroom. So I mean, hey, this is where my wife and I sleep. Yay!
Really, my biggest hurdle with the video is the fact that I don't have a working webcam. So that's why I need to know. If we're going to do video, I need to go buy one.
Well, you should buy one because it's in our future plans.
And that was the intent, was to get one, and then, yeah, maybe do some live specials every once in a while.
Yeah. Let's see. So cool prop news, Austin. You're kind of involved in the cool prop news that I saw.
Am I?
Yeah, this Logan Kim uniform.
Oh, yeah, that thing. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Oh, that thing. Oh, hey, no worries. I just made a uniform for the actor who played Podcast in Ghostbusters Afterlife. No big deal. How'd you get roped into that, man? That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm really supposed to talk about specifics or whatever, but the opportunity presented itself,
okay.
and I took it. So,
fair enough.
Craig Goldberg from Yes Have Some was involved.
Okay, yep, that guy definitely has the connections. Yeah. So, yeah, we don't want to go beyond that to threaten any kind of good relations or good favor or anything like that. So the uniform that Logan Kim is wearing, is that the one you've been weathering for the past couple of weeks? You've talked about. Excellent. And now, did you just weather his, or did you weather other ones as well?
Just that one. The first one that I've done. So. It turned out pretty good, I guess, for a first go.
I thought it was very successful for your first go, and that was one of the Carter Industries Nomex flight suits that you have a surplus of.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't have a surplus of khaki ripstop flight suits laying around, so I had to go with the next best option. But I do have a surplus of Carter Industries suits.
It looks amazing. Who'd you go for with the patches?
Well, the only patch that's actually on it is a logo patch, and it's a Venkman Calgary patch, and I believe, I don't remember if it's their first or second version. It's one that I've had for a while. It just worked out that I had one in my possession already, so that I could get it done and out the door for the deadline. And then, of course, the name tag is it's hand painted on. So
now, is it painted or Sharpied on? What'd you use to do that? It came out really sharp.
It's actually paint, because Sharpie would just bleed like crazy, and it would fade over time. So I wanted something that would be a little bit more permanent, so I went with paint. And then heat set the crap out of it, just to hopefully keep its vibrance and stuff over time. Because, it's got to be washed at some point. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, maybe he puts it in a frame and says, hey, this is cool. I feel like Logan Kim is young enough that he's got a whole career ahead of him, that he's not at the Ernie Hudson point where he wears a uniform to all of his signings.
We'll see. But if he was going to wear it to a signing, I wanted to make sure that he was going to look good and not wearing a Rothko like Ernie Hudson does.
Oh, bless his heart. Well, yeah, so speaking of patches... I don't know if you saw, but Todd Cook has released a Ghostbusters 2 arm patch.
Oh, I've seen it. Todd sends me updates on it and the name tags, and they are
gorgeous.
And
I
didn't get them.
Absolutely gorgeous. Why?
Because I was driving when they went on sale, and when I got stopped, I pulled my phone out and I went to the cart, and they were all gone. And so I guess I just got to wait for the second batch. Oh, bless
your heart.
Yeah, I was pretty
bummed he does have a second batch coming.
Yeah, I didn't even get one of the Legacy GB1 patches either. I was just so...
He's got more of those coming too.
I know, but it's just damn it, I wanted them now.
I'm sorry, bud. I got 2.
Well, you can send me one
then. I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk about it. You still have those ANPVS 5 frames? That's got to be worth something, right? One patch?
Maybe if it was screen used.
Going into Sony archives, tearing patches off of
here's the thing. Just so the Todd Cook patches are so good, you could swap them out and nobody'd tell the difference. Not at Sony.
I could. I probably could. Probably could get into one of what is it? Second City has one of his jumpsuits. Harold Ramis's jumpsuit on display.
Actually, you know what? Screw it. Just take the whole jumpsuit and we'll swap it out. I got Carter Industry suits out the butt.
They won't even know. They won't even know.
I would definitely trade you a set of goggle frames for that.
Yeah, I think I might hold on to that at that point.
Whatever, that's fine.
But let's get into it. Let's talk about our workbench, man, and see what's going on there.
What is that thing you're doing?
It's technical. It's one of our little toys.
The Proton Pack is not a toy.
I guess that's right.
Austin, don't say Phoebe pack, but what's on your workbench?
Ghostbusters Afterlife pack that is technically a Spengler pack, but it is utilized by the character of Phoebe Spengler throughout the majority of the film. But it is also, I guess, it's a Lucky pack. Lucky uses it at one point, so it's a Lucky pack.
Okay, it's a Lucky pack.
Okay,
sure.
We'll switch it up. I made a trigger tip, an Afterlife style trigger tip, and I spent over 2 hours hand cutting and shaping it, and I'm still not happy with it.
Dude, tell us about that. So I saw your photos of it. Where did you start with that trigger tip? Whose trigger tip did that start off as?
I have a bunch of like water jet cut trigger tips that I had done up years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That are just like, GB1, GB2 style. And I was dumb enough to think I could just take one of those and modify it. But of course not, because it's a completely different shape. And so I pulled up one of those really good close-ups of the tested photos. And I pulled it up, blew it up to 1:1 scale, drew a template off of that, and then transferred that to just a piece of like whatever 1/4 inch aluminum or whatever the correct thickness is, and proceeded to hand cut it out and grind and shape and file and sand for 2 hours until I got it to a point where this is pretty close, but it's still not 100% where I'd like it, and it's such a small detail. I don't know why I'm obsessing over it. I mean, I do. It's because that's just what I do. But
it's kind of a major detail, though. I wouldn't really consider that to be a minor detail. All the Proton Packs in Ghostbusters Afterlife, from what I can recall, looking at screenshots, aside from the sentry guns, all have that Spengler style crooked trigger tip.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it before. It's such a weird detail that like they clearly based the Phoebe pack on the superhero. Which is mislabeled as the Spengler. Clearly, but that detail is very specifically the actual Spengler hero. So why it's the one detail that got incorporated from the wand, I don't know. But yeah, it seems like they just made up a bunch of that same style and put them on all the packs.
So now it's, Ghostbuster fans has a really fantastic, they have two options. They have a machined aluminum, and then they have a welded together trigger tip, and both of them are gorgeous. And I've ordered both of them. Now, here's the question that I would have is, how is it getting mounted on? So the Ghostbusters fans one has a inset bolt, so the hole that the banjo bolts into has a set screw inside of it that then puts the tension on the acrylic tube so it doesn't move. But obviously at that angle, that's going to be a really difficult kind of setup to do.
To be honest with you, I was honestly just gonna like tension fit it, like
glue it.
I mean, it's going to be so tight around that acrylic tube. I don't think it's going to be an issue with it coming off, but I mean, I might run a set screw in it. I don't know. I might glue it. I don't know how they did it on the originals, but I mean, the banjo is clearly angled. So, it's like you said, trying to get a set screw in at an angle you would shatter that tube. Just trying to drill the hole. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet. I still have to get it welded together, and then once that's done, then I'll worry about how I'm going to drill set screws or whatever, drill my holes into it. Hope I don't mess
Just
it
hot
up.
glue it.
Sure, why not?
Just hot glue it.
I won't even weld it. I'll just put hot glue welds and paint them silver. Be fine.
So I got some fun updates today from Mark Carabaldi, who is currently printing out my synchronous generator and cyclotron, an interior cyclotron kit that he prints. First of all, so it's a collab, I believe, between Mark and Quentin, who run the 3D Ghostbuster printing page, and they do a phenomenal job. I really have to hand it to these guys, because they themselves have turned my opinion on 3D printing parts kind of around, mostly just because a lot of the stuff that they produced first was very idealized, very straight, and they'd be like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, well, it's missing the wonk. And between them adjusting their prints to actually print out that wonk and their finish styles, I mean, they're doing a really great job.
Yeah, I mean,
and
the 3D prints, especially with like the consumer grade machines, have gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
You get much better resolution now, which helps a lot. Something that I've always kind of noticed about a lot of people that do 3D printing, and it always bugs me, is so many people try to incorporate every detail into the model, and then they print it, and then they try and clean it up, and then they run into things like panel lines or really tight areas or raised details or something that's really hard to work around.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's always been a situation where I think you're better off leaving those small details out and adding them after the fact. Giving yourself...
And it's great that you... Yeah, it's actually great that you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that I was talking to Mark about, was that in the files that they're using, a great example is the cyclotron rings are not on the print of the cyclotron.
Yeah.
It's a separate part that you add in. So you end up with this nice surface area that you can just take a hand sander to and get any remaining print lines out of there, and then you come away with a spectacularly gorgeous print.
Well, and another benefit to that too is that if you're going for like an accurate texture or whatever, the cyclotron is textured, but the rings are not. So you can lay down your texture, and then you can stick your rings on after the fact, and you don't have to worry about masking them off and all that. And I know it's impractical to leave off like the strips of the boxes and stuff. I mean, I'm sure it could be done, but it can be a hassle. But the advantage of doing a proton pack and 3D printing it is the fact that they do have a texture to them, and a lot of the you want to do some cleanup. You want to try and get rid of the lines as best you can, but if it's not perfect, a lot of that gets hidden with texture and with paint. And that's, so many of the packs and stuff that I've seen that people have cleaned up and everything. They look phenomenal when they're finished. And yeah, the 3D printing and stuff's come a long way just in the last, 5 years. And I've seen some amazing 3D printed shells and packs that, if you didn't tell me it was 3D printed, I would have just thought it was a fiberglass shell.
For sure. And so that I'm going to bring us into, so that's what I'm waiting. I'm just kind of in a holding pattern for that kit and some good weather. I had good weather today, but again, transition at home, gotta get the house ready to pick up work. But I have the next 3 weeks off to get ready. So I kind of have a...
If you don't have like 4 proton packs finished within the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be so mad at you.
I'm going to be mad at Mother Nature because it's supposed to rain for the rest of the week.
No, you get out. You get tarps all over the house and space heaters and whatever you got to do to start painting and laying down texture and Bondo and everything. Just do it, man.
I'm just sitting there, everybody's eating dinner and I'm just slathering on Bondo filler.
You're making more money. You can afford the medical bills later.
the lung issues and the neurological issues of poisonous fumes. Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be
but
great.
You'll have 4 proton packs.
Exactly. That's true. And that seems like it's worthwhile. So we have a new segment, Austin. And I don't know if you've been taking a look around. I have. But we're going to go into our new segment. And for now, I'm just calling it You've Earned It.
Sounds good to me.
This reminded me of the time you tried to drill a hole through your head. Remember that?
That would have worked if you hadn't stopped me.
Egon, I'm going to take back some of the things I said about you. You've earned it.
All right, so new segment, Austin. You've earned it, and we announced this last session in which we were scouring for builds that were impressing the hell out of us, and so I did some scouring, and I actually found a build since we were talking about 3D printing that I wanted to go ahead and mention. This guy. He's I'm not sure if he's starting off from Q prints. A lot of the stuff that he's been showing off have been his own models, and it's a Mr. Michael Brandt. Have you seen his builds?
Yeah, I have.
Especially of interest being that texture that he got on his cyclotron. That he was just using Elmer's glue, and I think we meant to talk about it last session on how close it was to the actual texture of the Proton Pack. Not orange peel or truck bed liner or anything like that. He used Elmer's glue. And I'm going to read his post. This is from February 14th. He just stippled on some Elmer's glue and let it dry. And then he painted it on. And, super cheap and easy. And a lot of control over it. And that's it. And I'm looking at the photo of it and I'm just like, that is really fucking good looking texture.
And it's so simple. That's the part that's just like mind blowing, right?
Well, it's so simple, but then, as you had mentioned, it's the finish that really brings a pack together. All of his stuff is 3D printed.
Yeah.
And even went as so far as, because he's doing a replica of the Stance Proton Pack. Mm-hmm. And he actually wonked out his cyclotron lenses by adding material in there. I mean, he's got an ion arm that, aside from the machine bolts, is all 3D printed, and it doesn't look 3D printed. None of it looks 3D printed. It looks like aluminum parts put together.
Yeah. And that's because he's putting the time and the effort into cleaning it up and making it look nice. And, there's nothing wrong if you just want to put in a little effort and call it good, whatever. But if you, with a 3D print, if you really, really take the time to clean it up, it is indistinguishable, Well,
did you see his bellow that he painted up?
That thing looks amazing.
9 hours ago he posted it.
Even the top surface of the top silver disc, there's all these little scratches in it, and I don't know if those are intentional or if that's left over from the sanding process of smoothing it out, but that adds a little extra layer of realism, and it just looks phenomenal.
It looks like aluminum. It looks like a real bellow. I'm blown away with his paint application. I'm blown away with his attention to detail. Mm-hmm. His builds are just impressive, and he's also, aside from his Proton Pack, which I'm super excited to see finish with all the TLC that he's been putting into it. He's also been remodeling out a Ghostbusters Afterlife trap to include kind of the bigger, wheels and any kind of dimensional differences there. So I mean, he's just pumping out awesome work. But I'm blown away by the pack from what he's shown so far.
Yeah, I'm really psyched to see it.
It's pretty out of this world. Yeah. So Michael Brandt, you've earned it. Whatever that is, it's nothing. Again, it's just accolades. We're seeing your build, man, and it's blowing us away. So please keep building.
Send us your mailing address, and we'll mail you a French bar.
and it will show up as an amorphous blob in a crunch bar wrapper.
Just stick it back in the fridge; it'll be fine.
But it's still already melted.
But it'll recongeal and harden back up. Like all the little crispy bits will be down in the bottom, but it's fine.
But it's not going to recongeal back into the crunch bar shape. But it's still going to be a blob.
But it'll be
a frozen blob.
Solid, and he can eat it. Why are we talking about this? It doesn't matter. Okay, you know what? I have resin copies of a crunch bar that are cast in brown resin and everything. We'll send him one of those. Is that better?
I'm not holding on to that promise because the whole point of this was just recognition.
Yeah, I can't promise that either.
Not sending out stuff.
I'm just talking.
Yeah, you'll say I'm going to send that out in like 6 months down the line. They're going to be like, "Where's my crunch bar?" And you'll be like, "Oh, who are you?"
I was just about to say, "Oh, we'll just PayPal you like $1 and you can go buy one at the convenience store," but we probably won't even do that.
The grand prize for getting noticed on the Black Firehouse podcast is a PayPal $1. We're gonna send it though as
goods and services.
Goods and services, so they have to pay a fee on that $1.
And you gotta pay it on your taxes too.
Yes, and then
assuming he makes
don't
over
get anything in return. $600.
Yeah.
But if we don't get anything in return, we'll of course open up a PayPal dispute. Look, goods and services, $1. 6 months ago, we want our $1 back. This is a struggling podcast. God damn it!
This segment has already gone way downhill.
I can't wait to do it again.
I know.
Well, excellent. So yeah, for all of our listeners, the You've Earned It, it's just a way of recognizing some of those really fantastic builds out there. And I know in the future we'll talk more about building and certain builds and spirit packs. We'll get into all those things. You don't necessarily have to be, of course, a part of Spengler's 1984 workbench. Me and Austin here are members of a great deal of the builder and maker forums that are on Facebook, Replica Props, the RPF and gbfans.com and everything. So we're out there looking to see what people are putting out there and looking for those high quality builds that kind of fit what we're looking for. So I think without further ado, so today we are actually talking about Ghostbusters 2 hand props. Those are going to be the small props, maybe not necessarily anything that's necessarily built, but there's definitely some chances for a few of those in there, such as the Geiger Meter or the Cud Meter. So without further delay, let's get into our main topic.
Listen. You smell something?
There's something very important I forgot to tell you.
What?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Why?
So, welcome back to the Black Firehouse podcast. As always, you can find most of the reference items that we're talking about on the Ghostbusters reference library over on Facebook.com. If you want to join in the conversation, you can always join us at Spengler's 1984 Workbench. And if you want to like us, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and of course on Facebook itself. And you can always like us on the Apple Podcasts website. Still trying to figure out how to get us on iTunes, Spotify, our RSS feed, and then every Friday our episodes get uploaded onto YouTube. Today we are talking about Ghostbusters 2 hand props. And I'm actually excited. It's a different territory. It's not necessarily, jumpsuits, ghost traps, proton packs. These are the kind of the small hand props. And I wanted to touch on Ghostbusters 2 first, just because I kind of felt that their hand props were a little more interesting in Ghostbusters 2. Austin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I feel like there's a few more of them than there is. In Ghostbusters 1, I mean, I guess you could consider something like the sniffer as a hand prop.
Yeah, I would. The sniffer and
the mini rad,
the UM79. Yeah, the mini rad. And then if you really get into it, I guess you could start talking about, Egon's calculator and the video cameras and things like that. But I felt like Ghostbusters 2 has the more collectible and noticeable hand props.
For sure, yeah.
I think the top one that everyone's always after, just because it's so bloody noticeable, it's never even actually in their hand, it's on their belts. And that's the infamous Lifeguard 2 pass alarm.
Yeah, those things
and that
are so cool.
They're cool, and I think they're my favorite prop in convention settings because it's the easiest way to find all the other Ghostbusters as long as everybody else has one.
Assuming they're real and they work.
Assuming that they're real and they work, and assuming everybody else has one. But oh my god, man, I tell you, they're the best thing to clear crowds, especially at a major convention like Dragon Con, just to get through. I mean, you hit that pass alarm, it is just going to go off, and everybody's going to clear out of the way. Nobody's going to know what's happening.
I remember the first time... Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, the first time.
Okay, so it was the first time that I got a real working one. I believe... I think it was even as far back as... back when ASAP was still around, aside about props. I feel like I got two from somebody on there, I don't remember. And they came in the mail, and for whatever reason, this was before I could drive. And I think the mail came, and like me and my dad were going to go somewhere or something. And so I grabbed the box and I jumped in the car waiting for him to come out. And I opened the box and I pull him out. And I'm looking at him. Oh, I can't believe that I've got these things. They're so cool. And I turn the knob on one and it starts to go off. Worst mistake of my life. You do not want to turn one of those on full blast inside a car.
No, especially when your poor father wasn't.
Well, he wasn't in the car yet. So it was just me. I was waiting for him to come out. And dude, it scared the crap out of me. And I'm going to blame my... shitty hearing on that incident.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna blame concerts, but Lifeguard 2s are a pretty good second place to blame there. Now, interestingly enough, there's actually, from what I know of, 3 variants of the Lifeguard 2.
I used to have a bunch of them. At one point, I was trying to collect every variant, and I think you were as well.
So my collection has stopped at the 3 different kind of main variants, which is one has like a little indicator light on the front that flashes when it's going off, and then for lack of a better phrase, the speaker grill or whatever on the front is wider on one and then thinner on another, but they're all Lifeguard 2s.
So yeah, there's definitely more than 3 then. Okay. I wish I still had them. I got to a point where I was like, I don't need all these, and I ended up giving away or selling off some of the other variants. So I've only got, I think, 3 that are like the screen accurate ones. But there's the one with the indicator light, and you're talking about those little like horizontal notches in the sides, right? Yeah, so there's ones that are rounded, that the ends of them are rounded. You have one that's wider and you have one that's thinner. I believe the one with the thinner lines or the thinner openings are what is accurate to Ghostbusters 2. But there is also a version...
That's what I understand.
Yeah, there's also a version that has the fatter openings, but they don't have the rounded ends. They're triangular.
Interesting.
And then there's a version that has no horizontal openings at all. It's just the round holes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So my collection is way incomplete.
Yeah. I've only ever seen the one without the openings, like maybe twice. I don't even know if I still have a picture of one anywhere. I'm pretty sure that's a Lifeguard 2. It could be a Lifeguard 4, but I'm almost positive it's a 2. But the one with the fatter openings with the triangular ends is definitely a Lifeguard too, because I had a couple of those at one point.
Interesting. I kind of wonder why Lifeguard made so many variants of the two, especially because the Lifeguard 4 is almost a carbon copy.
Yeah, I mean, they're identical other than the logo, and most of the Lifeguard 4s I've seen tend to be, I think, the ones with the fatter openings, but like the rounded ends.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if the fatter open. And the thing is, too, it could be a situation where some of them, they're just strange differences in where they were manufactured. To get kind of weird and off topic, but like vintage Star Wars figures, you look at them all and like, yeah, essentially they're the same, but depending on what factory they came out of, there's all sorts of weird little differences in the sculpts. Yeah, and it could be a situation like that where, they all start off as the same initial mold, and changes get made in a factory for some reason, and so, the ones from this factory are this way, the ones from that factory are another way. Who knows?
Interesting. So it sounds like there's then at least 4 or 5 different Lifeguard 2s, but the ones that people would be after have the thinner horizontal openings on them. And of course, there's now replicas of those, so you don't have to go out of your way to spend. I think they're rounding about $75 to $100 now on the secondary market.
Yeah, and it's annoying because they used to be had for $15-$20 a pop. The last major bunch that I got a lot on eBay. I think it was like 15 or 20 of them for like $50.
Wow.
And I long for those days when we could buy things, like lots of Lifeguard 2s or lots of MT500s for pennies, compared to nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, especially even MT500s. I mean, they were going for a max of $30 maybe 3 years ago, and they've jumped up into that $50 and $75.
They
range.
seem to fluctuate. I've noticed it's like there's these dry spells where you can't really find them, and then somebody somewhere finds a warehouse full of them, and then eBay gets flooded with them, and they get real cheap again. I wish it was like that with the Lifeguard 2s, but I'm pretty sure there's way more MT500s in the world than there are Lifeguard 2s.
Probably. But I have to say, as far as Ghostbusters 2 hand props go, the Lifeguards are by far the most fun and the most noticeable.
And something, just a brief thing that I want to touch on with these is, I always liked the Rolling Stone cover that had the gray Lifeguards on them.
Where they grayed them out.
Yeah. I don't know what the decision was, like the reason behind that decision was, but it's so cool looking. And I have a resin one that I painted up gray like that I would wear with my uniform sometimes. And one of these days,
I remember seeing that, and I remember loving it. It's a lot like the blue label on top of the Proton Pack, where it's something that it never really existed, but it's still cool and still one of those fun things, like a throwback or a nod to, hey, we used to think this.
Well, even Ray's Ecto goggles on that cover, they've colored the lenses inside, like the glass part of the lenses on the inside are like red, and I'm almost positive they're not red in the movie.
I don't know, the movie you can't really tell.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's true. I guess you never really get a good look at them. That's why I was hoping.
And that would be one of those things that would be strange for them to recolor. At least with the Lifeguards, they recolored them, I think, to gray on the Rolling Stone cover, just to make sure that they weren't taking away from the noticeability of the Rolling Stone title. It's just so that it didn't have that yellow pop on the page, so you were still paying attention to the primary color of the Rolling Stone. But the lenses for the goggles being red, I noticed that too. And we're gonna have to do an episode on Ecto goggles soon, because I think there's a lot of preconceived notions on the Ghostbusters 2 goggles that are just simply not correct. but it's such a hard prop to research because it really only shows up in the jogger scene, and then the lighting is so harsh that it's difficult to pick out any details on them.
Yeah, I mean, and all the rest of the time they're hanging from the belt, and good luck getting any kind of discernible detail from that. And that's why I was hoping on the Ultimate box set we would have got that deleted scene where Ray actually goes up to the slime wall and inspects the wall with the Gecko goggles. That we have one still shot of that, but
that would have been nice. That would have been a great shot, great scene to have.
Just any extra footage of those goggles would be welcome.
Anything. Where'd they come from? Where did they go? So, other hand props. Let's go into the second most fun hand prop, at least to me, because it's actually a usable kind of thing, is the realistic sound level meter.
Yeah. I love that thing.
Not to be confused with the realistic sound level meter that the ears are used on the Geiger Meter, but we're talking about the actual sound level meter itself that has the little graph on it.
Yeah, well, that's like a dual microphone thing, I think.
It is, yeah. But I think it's supposed to plug into a more robust sound level meter or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a sound expert. I'm not a recording expert or anything like that. But I love my sound level meter.
Yeah.
And it's one of the props that actually shows up again on the belt. It has its own kind of little custom pouch in the movie, and we can still see it.
Which I always...
Have we ever... Yeah. Have we ever identified what that pouch was to?
No, and I was just talking with somebody about this the other day. Like, it's a frustrating thing because we really don't know if it's custom or if it's a pouch from something else.
Oh yeah, I mean it could be a binoculars case.
Yeah, I mean to me, I think what's appealing to me about it is the fact that it's on the belt, and I don't know. I kind of lean towards maybe it is custom simply because it seems to be designed in such a way that when it's holstered, you still see like the gauge. The gauge is visible, and it seems to me like it was built specifically to still show the visually interesting part of the prop while it's holstered.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it could have been something they slapped together, but I mean, it also could be something else that was modified.
I would lean towards something that they just found that worked for the part, because I know on my belt, I usually just shove my sound level meter into a Motorola holster.
See, I have a vintage, a correct vintage one, but I also have one of the more modern ones that they still sold at Radio Shack. Up until I don't know, a few years before they closed. And it comes with like a little vinyl pouch, with a flap on it that snaps over. But what I ended up doing was just sort of folding the bottom over and kind of rolling it up and then stitching it in place just so it just pushed the meter up a little bit. So only about half of the meter would holster. And that worked great until I realized just hanging it from the little loopy handle that they had on it, it kept flipping over and falling out. And so then I was like, well, I'll just I'll fold over the flap and stitch it down. And that seemed to work.
But now we have shots of, the real one. And I don't feel like it would be too hard to replicate and stitch together.
No, it's some kind of, just like nylon that you see like camera cases and stuff made out of.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be hard to kind of reverse engineer a pattern for it. I haven't seen anybody do one, though. I've never seen somebody make an accurate pouch yet, so somebody's got to be the first to do it.
I'm surprised at how little attention is ever paid to some of the elements on the Ghostbusters 2 belt for being such a complex piece. I don't know if it's people just don't realize how complex it is. The black belt, I would say. Yeah. Not their khaki belts. But the riggers belts that they wear with either the charcoal jumpsuits or in the finale of the movie, there's a lot of really cool details on those. You know, you have the lighter backing to them versus the combination of 3-hole nylon material and then seatbelt material into a a D clip, and then you have all the cool fobs hanging off of it. You have the Lifeguard and a belt gizmo, and then a trap holster. I mean, they get they're pretty damn busy belts.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or anything. I think I was the first person to actually custom make one like fairly accurately back in the day, and I did a small run of, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them maybe. And like I did one for me and Ron and Jairus, and I don't remember if I ever did one for you or not.
No, you didn't do one for me. I got mine from I think his name was Greg.
Okay.
He made a really, really fantastic run of them. It doesn't have the correct lighter material on the back.
Mine didn't
that
either.
We've been able to see now.
Because, I mean,
yeah.
I think I knew it had it at the time, but I just could not find 3-inch gray webbing at the time. So I just used double black. But the thing that was the really fun thing about those belts is that if you load them up with all the fobs and the key rings and all the gear, you sound like a fucking elf walking around jingling. And I believe it was MegaCon like 2010 or something. Me and Ron and Jairus were there, and we kind of we're all wearing our charcoal gray jumpsuits with the belts, and we were kind of like running through the hallways trying to get into the dealer room or something. All you heard was just like this jingling in unison, and it was weird, but like it was cheesy, but it sounded so cool. Like you sounded important somehow. It was awesome. And that's just, it's a little thing, but I always get a kick out of that, like jingle when you walk with all those fobs and shit on there.
There's a fun sound that if you have a full on Ghostbusters costume, that your costume kind of makes. Just that, jingle,
it's like,
clinking kind of thing. I'm sure like Stormtrooper cosplayers get the same feeling.
Yeah, you get that clanking and clacking and the Ghostbusters sound. It's very, I don't know, you sound utilitarian or something. Like, you sound functional.
And I don't know if it's either the gear itself or it's your spine compressing it on itself.
It's probably a little bit of both, to be honest.
So I love the sound level meter, especially because, they work. They're a sound level meter.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of fun to like break them out at events and like turn it on, and you get the little light going and it's actually picking up sound. But of course, if you're at an event with the public or kids, it's like, oh, there's a ghost. And
nobody knows what the hell it is.
But they love it.
But it's doing stuff.
No, nobody knows
blinking,
what it is.
The numbers change, or the gauge moves.
The gauge moves. Yeah, it looks cool. And I think that's what I always loved about the Ghostbusters hand props, is they always had, gauges that could move.
Yeah. Or some kind of blinky lights or something that, shows you activities going on.
So let's talk about the community named Cud Meter.
See, it's weird to me to hear people call it the Cud Meter, because I've always called it the KUD meter.
Because the PKE meter.
It's only been fairly recently I've heard people refer to it as the Cud meter. I was like, oh, okay, I guess.
Maybe it should be. You know what? Now that you say it, I don't know if anybody's ever come out and said, "Hey, this is how you pronounce it."
To be honest with you, I don't remember what KUD stands for. I know it's kitchen utensil, but I don't remember what D stands for.
It's kitchen utensil detector.
Detector? Okay, so it's the kitchen utensil detector meter. So should it just be called the KUD? Because like detector and meter, like aren't they sort of the same thing? Anyway, whatever. It's a meter drop.
I mean, even if you said device, it still doesn't make sense, because then it would be the kitchen utensil device meter.
Kitchen utensil dilithium crystal meter. I don't know.
Star Trek, man.
Yeah.
Listen, there's Ghostbuster props in Star Trek, but there's not Star Trek props in Ghostbusters.
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. Well, hold on.
What's that even mean?
Wait a minute. Did the tripod traps show up in TNG before or after 89?
After.
Okay.
After.
And I mean, technically the Geiger Meter started out as a Star Trek 2 prop. So.
Did it?
Yeah. I think it's Star Trek 2. It's in one of the Star Trek movies. And it doesn't have the the microphone ears on it yet. There's a couple other differences. That stuff got added later. But we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that later.
KUD meter.
In just a few minutes. Yeah. What is the base for the KUD meter?
Again, it's a realistic metal detector. The model number I don't remember off the top of my head, but very common, very easy to find. I believe
Radio Shack did a version of it too,
well,
right?
Realistic was like a brand that Radio Shack sold, and so a lot of times they either carried the Realistic brand or they had their own version of it, which was exactly the same, identical. It just was branded Radio Shack.
Radio Shack on it.
I don't remember if the KUD meter, if the branding is even visible on the. Yeah, I know, like the sound level meter, it's visible, and I believe it is actually a Realistic meter, not a Radio Shack branded version.
Correct. Yeah. And then it has the potato masher,
and just like a strainer of some sort, like a round strainer,
and a strainer, like a big strainer spoon, and then a little hapless LED.
It's such a weird prop, and I remember the first time because as strange as this may sound for somebody who's detail obsessed as I am, I never really noticed it that much in the movie or paid close attention to it until somebody pointed it out on, again, I think it was like ASAP back in the day. And I'm like, well, that's kind of goofy and stupid looking. I don't like that. But then, well, I came around to it because I started to realize, well, no, that's so Ghostbusters. You know, I mean, Lewis's helmet is made out of a colander, of course. Like, of course we're going to continue to use kitchen utensils, you know?
I love that line in Ghostbusters Afterlife where Callie's buying paint and he's talking to the shopkeep about Egon. He's like, "Your dad, he bought some bizarre shit."
That is like that's my favorite line in the whole movie.
It's a brilliant line because it's like, he would buy some really bizarre shit.
I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like that sometimes when I go into a hardware store or Walmart or whatever, I buy the weirdest combination of things. And, you know, every once in a while you get like one of the hardware store employees that is like, well, what are you building? It's like, just where's it at? You know, like, I don't want to tell you. You wouldn't believe me anyway.
Yeah. I think the first time it was for her Christmas, my mom had taken the parts list from a set of Norm plans and went to Home Depot for Christmas to get me all the stuff off the plans. And the Home Depot person asked her, you know, what are you trying to build? And she's like, well, my son's trying to build a nuclear accelerator. And they're like, oh, okay. And like just went on with it. And I'm like, but this was like post 9/11.
Yeah.
The guy didn't even blink at the fact that this kid is trying to build a nuclear reactor out of shit he finds at Home Depot.
Yeah. I had a guy at home, Ace Hardware, who, God bless his heart. He was a younger guy. Not that much older than I was, I guess. So, and I remember going into Home Depot or to Ace Hardware, and I was trying to buy a bunch of stuff for a Proton Pack I was building, and the guy's like, well, what are you building? It's like, I'm building a Proton Pack, an unlicensed nuclear accelerator. He just kind of looks at me. He goes, okay. I was like, it's from the Ghostbusters. It's a movie prop. And when I told him it was from Ghostbusters, he was like, oh my God, that's incredible. And then he followed me around the store the rest of the time asking questions. And then every time I went to the hardware store after, he'd find me and just start It was so annoying.
Oh, bless his heart. He finally could have gotten somebody in on building Ghostbusters stuff, and you're like, nah, you're annoying.
Hey, I shouldn't be that way, but it was just like, I just want to go get my stuff and I want to leave, dude. Like, I'm trying to build it. I'm not trying to talk about it right now.
I always, you know what, though, you're right. It's a different headspace when you're at the hardware store.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get stuff for a project. Because usually when we're at the hardware store, it means that the project is sitting on the workbench at home. Mm-hmm. And you forgot something.
Or you ran out of something or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So they essentially they took the front off of the metal detector and just jammed the kitchen utensils into that pole.
Yeah, from what I can gather, I've never built one. I have parts for it, but I've just never built it. But the main like shaft leading to the little metal detector part at the end, the base, is just chopped down. I think it's probably like 9 or 10 inches long. Actually, it's probably shorter than that. I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, they're like, one of them is jammed in, and then the potato masher or the strainer, it's bent up at like a 90-degree angle, and then the potato masher, I believe, is bent kind of at a weird, like, it's like a 45-degree angle, but the potato masher already has a bend on it to begin with.
Yeah.
Anyway, they modified it a little bit.
They modified it for a little bit, but I am going on to the reference library right now. I should have had this already pulled up, but
I don't remember if there's any real pictures of it on, because I mean, there's no pictures of the prop outside of the few screen grabs in the movie.
There has to be. Here we go. He has 5 photos.
Okay.
They are all screen grab. No, there's there's one that says it's from the Fuzzy Math collection, but that looks to be, I believe, a replica.
Yeah, and there are some replicas that are in those folders.
Because I don't see the LED on the potato masher.
Yeah, and also, I'm looking at pictures now. I'm totally wrong. They didn't bend anything on the potato masher. I'm just stupid.
No, yeah. You are stupid. I love you.
Thank you.
I'm stupid too, so it's okay. It's such a dumb prop. I love it.
This is what proof right now that, like, if anybody ever thought, we think we're some kind of experts having a Ghostbusters podcast, it's like, we're not. We just like to talk about them.
Exactly. That's my favorite thing, is just talking about the Ghostbusters props.
It's such a simple, it's a stupid prop. It's simple. I have no idea why I haven't built mine yet.
How about this one? Also, I think this was in Star Trek. It's labeled as the latent image sensor. And that, I'm pretty sure, was in Star Trek as well.
Yeah, that's another one of those modern props pieces that's just, it's been in everything. It's like the tripod traps. It's been in commercials, and it's been in Star Trek and Sequest, and it was in a random episode of Veronica Mars, and like all sorts of stuff. And that's...
Didn't you recently identified a part of the latent image sensor?
Kind of the main handle piece, the white handle part.
What is that from?
The item I found, it's a Spiri, I think it's Spiri X-ray lamp, I think is what it was called, what the eBay listing was called.
Oh my God.
And it's like it's a giant light with an iris on it, and I guess it's reviewing X-rays. I don't, you got me. But wow. I found it completely by accident, looking for a Ghostbusters Afterlife prop of all things. The Ghost Egon lamp, right? The little mercury glass shade that I was looking for one of those. I'm pretty sure I had identified the right one, and I wasn't finding one looking specifically for the brand name and all that. So I just kind of broadened my search and just typed in X-ray lamp. And I scrolled through all the listings, and, I get down to the very bottom, and I think the listing was like 2 from the bottom. And it was one of those situations where I saw the thumbnail of this piece, and then I kind of dismissed it, and I started scrolling back up. And I get all the way almost back to the top, and it clicked. Wait a minute, I've seen that before. And I scroll all the way back down, and I click on the listing, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I think that's the main frame handle from the latent image sensor. And so, man, I like rush over to the reference library, and I'm pulling it up, and I'm looking, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is the piece. This is the piece. Like, I'm freaking out.
Oh my god!
And so it cost me like $250.
Oh my
which
god!
Half of that was just shipping the thing. I mean, it's heavy as shit. But I bought it and I got it in, and I was so happy. And I've never done anything with it since.
Well, it is a complicated prop. Like, the reference library has video of it in action.
Yeah.
You know, not only does it have like the 2 aircraft light on the bottom, but then the whole thing gyrates back and forth while this piece over it pivots and has 3 LEDs. But to make it even more complicated is there's this fan heat sink kind of thing in this clear glass dome on top.
Yeah.
That rotates by quarter every time the main part of the prop rotates again. Like, it's a really, really cool prop.
Thankfully, if I recall correctly, it's not functioning in Ghostbusters 2. So you technically just need a static version to be accurate to Ghostbusters 2. But it would be really nice if I ever get around to finishing out, mine now that I have the handle to make it function, the way the real prop did.
Well, you have a lot more pieces you have to accidentally run into on...
And
on Facebook.
I don't know if it happens to anybody else, but a lot of times when I find something or I make a big discovery like that, like, suddenly I feel like I can do anything. And so then I'm like, nothing. Well, fuck, if I found this, I can find all these other pieces in an hour. And I just start Googling, and I'm like 7 hours later, it's, 4 in the morning, and I'm just exhausted. And I'm like, what am I doing?
I mean, that was how I felt after I picked up the Valley Lab electrosurgical generator for the Proton charger. I was like, oh man, I found this piece. This means I can identify everything else on the Proton charger. And I was like, nah, that was
just
like
it's
8
just
months ago.
It's just dumb luck is all it is, For me, it was just a situation of I was in the right place at the right time, ironically enough, looking for another Ghostbusters prop on eBay when this thing popped up. And I've Googled this Spiri X-ray lamp. Like, I've Googled the model number and everything. I can't find anything about it on the internet. I can't find an old manual.
Wow.
I can't find another picture of another one, anything. So, it could be some crazy rare piece. It could be something that's super common that just nobody ever puts up for sale online, but it's like plentiful and in surplus places.
Or it could be one of those things that just got thrown away when it wasn't used anymore.
I was really hoping, because when it's got this really big base on it, and I was really hoping that I was going to get this thing and I was going to open it up and there was going to be more parts for the latent image sensor inside of it.
Like everything was going to be inside.
Like
some of it. It was just pre-built for you.
Like some of the guts would have been inside, and I opened it up. I mean, I tore the whole thing down. There was nothing else that was used. But apparently the giant knob on the side is also the same knob on one of the amplifiers in Doc Brown's house that Marty messes with at the beginning of Back to the Future. So there you go. It did have another prop on it.
Well, the knob's on the side.
Okay. On the X-ray piece that I found, it's got this giant knob with like a little skirt thing on it.
Interesting.
I do eventually plan. I plan to mold the handle and make some castings, just because the handle, it's just cast metal, but it is kind of heavy. And to be honest with you, I want to keep that piece intact as an example of the real item. Like, I don't want to sacrifice the only real one that anybody's ever found to making a replica, because by the time it's repainted white and everything, it's not going to matter anyway.
Let's be honest. This is one of those things where this is one of those cool props where you have a piece from it, and you're like, yeah, I would love to build the rest of this.
Well, I mean,
it's not going to get finished.
The only way it's going to get finished is probably if I 3D print the rest of the stuff. And by me saying 3D printed, I mean I'm going to have my buddies model it, and then somebody else print it for me, and then I'll just finish it.
That is the correct. Yes, that's the correct way of saying that. Yeah. Oh gosh. And then let's see what else we got. Oh, got another radiation meter for Ghostbusters 2.
The Monitor 4.
And this one, yep, the Monitor 4 radiation meter, which still goes for outlandish prices, like $200.
I really want one, but somebody in some of the groups had posted one up. They were in the UK, and they posted it up for sale, and I watched it, but I was like, it's just too rich for my blood.
Well, especially because, like, I kind of... I love having, like, you know, my mini rad meter from Ghostbusters and stuff, but I kind of figure, like, if I'm ever in a situation where that would come in handy, I'm probably not too terribly worried about Ghostbuster props anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, at least with the mini rad...
used... Well, at least the mini rad has a lot more screen time.
Well, and it was used, like, in Ghostbusters 1, like, while they were ghostbusting, essentially, right? The Monitor 4 is
whereas
just, like...
the Monitor 4 is... Yeah.
It's just...
Only in the opening scene with Egon.
Yeah, which, you know, it's a fun prop for that scene. You can walk around and ask people, let's see what happens when we take away the puppy.
Take away my dog and I'll hurt you. Oh, good. My Monitor 4 is going off the charts.
Yeah. But no, it's one of those, you know, kind of unique. And, you know, I think the other thing that's kind of funny about all these is that these are all real world items that serve a real world function. But within the context of the movie, they're not being used for their intended purpose.
The only prop I think you could say was used for its intended purpose would maybe be the Lifeguard.
The Lifeguard,
except for when they all fall down, and then it never goes off.
The Lifeguard or the Globoscope, maybe. But you know, it's one of those situations where it's like, is it being used for its intended purpose, or was that item picked specifically for its function, where it looks like it's doing something crazy, and we're just pretending it's some kind of crazy meter, you know?
Right. And the Globoscope, that's a hell of a piece.
There's always some on eBay, because they're always like $6,000.
Yeah, they're always like 5 or 6, and I just actually pulled up eBay to look. And there actually aren't any on eBay right now. The level meter for it is on there. And I'm always kind of like weirded out, like how many of the level meters for the Globoscope there are versus actual Globoscopes. Yeah. Like, I feel like there's not that many Globoscopes to actually warrant this many levels for that particular camera. But it's a panoramic camera, and it's one of the coolest ones in there. And it was one of the props I would say that people always really wanted to identify, just because we get such a good shot of it with Ray, you know, playing with it up on the Vigo, the Carpathian piece. But that is one of my dream props that, you know, when I had a plethora of extra money, that I would one day be like, yeah, I'm throwing down $6,000 on a panoramic camera that they probably don't even make film for anymore.
Probably not. But, you know, somebody's probably got some new old stock film out there that hopefully has been properly stored.
You know what? But there's also some replicas. I know Shapeforge offers a replica of it that's really well done.
Yeah. I know his are 3D printed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I can't
Martin
remember.
Bryce does all of his own 3D printing and files and stuff. He does a great job. I've definitely mentioned it before. I have his real Ghostbusters Proton Pack, and his Proton Packs always look really great as well. But he's done a few other hand props. He's kind of filled in the gaps where I guess like Ben of Kent hasn't done. Like I know Ben of Kent did like a sniffer replica, and he's done that mini rad replica, which I'm not in total agreement on the price for it.
I don't even,
because I feel like you can still get a real one.
I haven't even looked at the price on them.
Yeah, they're pricey for, a 3D print, but they're nice, and apparently were also used in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Which is pretty cool. Well,
and going back to the Globoscope, so there's the Shapeforge one. Somebody made a resin cast of it that they cast in like the black resin, so you can put a nice chrome paint over the top of it. That is the only downside to doing any kind of replica of it is it's a brushed aluminum finish on the real piece, which is almost impossible to replicate with any kind of paint job.
Yeah,
but it's also
rub and buff.
Well, yeah, rub and buff would work, I guess.
Rub and buff, if you do a really nice sand job on it, can come out looking like brushed aluminum. It's
just then I've always had terrible luck with rub and buff. It gets everywhere, and especially for a hand prop like that, where the entire thing is covered in it.
Yeah. Well, you would have to seal it afterwards, definitely with a clear coat,
which could defeat the purpose. It may dull it down significantly, but brushed aluminum is not a high polish finish anyway. So
no. But it's definitely on my list of outlandishly pricey Ghostbusters props.
It's just a cool looking piece. Like,
it is a cool looking piece. It's very sci-fi, very like 30s sci-fi kind of thing. And it's funny that it's there because it is, as far as Ghostbuster aesthetics go, really doesn't match anything else.
And to be honest with you, it's strange that it's not a piece that I've personally. It may have shown up, but I haven't personally ever seen it in anything else. And it's such a bizarre item. Like you said, it's very like 30s, 50s sci-fi. Like you would think it would have shown up in something else as some kind of crazy, sci-fi hand prop, but I've never seen it anywhere else other than that movie. And if it weren't for Ghostbusters 2, I wouldn't even know that they made a 360-degree camera like that.
Yeah.
The Matty Collector, the giant, like the 2-packs they did from Ghostbusters 2 that had, I think it was like Peter and Ray in one 2-pack and Winston and Egon in another. They had a whole tray full of accessories, and they included the Globoscope as one of the accessories for that, which I always thought was really cool because it's such a weird, obscure prop.
Yeah. It is a weird, obscure prop.
Yeah.
But I love it. Absolutely love it. So let's talk about the big add-on as far as meters. I just don't think that we could dedicate a whole episode to it, but we could dedicate about 20 minutes to it, which is the Geiger Meter. It holds a special place in my heart just based on the fact that it follows the tradition of the PKE meter and that it's made from a shoe polisher, which is it's a scrub and buff,
Redmond scrub and buffer, yeah.
Yep. And then it has the realistic microphone ears on it, and those pivot around, and then a digital counter on the front, and then that cool globe with the spinning lights inside of it.
It always, when I think of the Geiger Meter, I always think about all of the numerous attempts over the years by various people trying to replicate, and everybody, going and buying those little just novelty toys of like the clear globe with the circus lights, the spinning LEDs on the inside, and everybody trying to utilize one of those. And I don't know that I ever saw anybody successfully implement one of those into theirs, but I mean, even I bought not a full size one. It's funny because I was talking about this earlier, actually. Years ago, I found what is essentially a mini version of a Redmond scrub and buffer. It's super tiny. It's like a little portable, like scrubber or buffer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea where it is at this point. I actually had 2 of them at one point. But I always wanted to make like a mini Geiger meter out of it. And I remember always
cool.
like I would run into those like smaller novelty, like circus light toys. And again, I never could figure out how to implement it. But anyway, yeah, it's a really unique prop. And again, like the PKE meter, wasn't built specifically for the movie. It was just a crazy sci-fi prop that was built for modern props.
Now, do you think the PKE meter wasn't built for Ghostbusters, or do you think it was built for Ghostbusters and then sold off to modern props?
From what I remember reading, it was built back in, I think, the late 70s. But it wasn't
never
used in anything, I don't think. I think Ghostbusters might have been the first production. I'm really rusty on the PKE history, but I believe it was specifically built for modern props.
Well, we're gonna have to do a PKE episode and get Julian on here.
I'm probably completely wrong on that. I have no idea, but I know the Geiger meter was.
Or Derek Osborne would be a fantastic guest to have. And I know Derek likes listening. So, Derek, you let us know when you're available and what you'd be interested in talking about. And we'd love to have you
Absolutely.
on.
It'd be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun. So, the Geiger meter, of course, measures Geiger electron volts, which in the Ghostbusters universe is, I guess, what's put off by emotions.
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. I have no idea. It puts off 2-point GeVs, whatever that is.
Oh, right.
Okay,
volts.
Yeah. Duh.
Yeah. But I guess Mood Slime has its own emotion that it puts off.
Like I said, it's in one of the Star Trek movies. I believe it's.
Well, it shows up in one of the Turtles shows. Too,
no,
it's
in like a
Rangers
Ninja
episode?
Turtles like commercial.
Okay.
I don't remember what the commercial was specifically, but it was like I believe it's Ninja Turtles related. Yeah, it shows up in that. I don't remember if it has the realistic microphone ears on it yet at that point, but like I said, in whatever Star Trek movies, and I think it's 2, it doesn't have the ears. It's missing. I think it's missing the LED readout also. It's missing some other detail. I can't remember what specifically, but yeah, at some point they added the ears. I've always wondered if those were added specifically for Ghostbusters 2. But depending on when like that commercial that we're talking about came out, and if it's got the ears on that, who knows? But and as far as I know, unlike the PKE, there's only one of the Geiger meter, and I would love to know where its whereabouts are at this point, or if it even still exists.
Yeah, that is another one of those. Now, a lot of the Ghostbuster props, the latent image sensor was obviously, I think, sold during Modern Props' liquidation.
Yeah. Which I would love to know who has that, and if it's somebody who's a Ghostbusters fan, or they Star Trek, Sequest,
So looking, I went ahead and EctoWeb has screen captures from the Ninja Turtles thing, and it does have the ears.
Okay.
And let me see. I'm going to do Star Trek now.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's Star Trek 2, but it's been so long, I don't even remember if it has any real major screen time other than just like a couple of shots.
It's Star Trek 6.
There we go, yeah, so I was way off, but whatever. I knew it was Star Trek.
Way off. And let me see. The screen capture, it's difficult to tell
VHS quality?
if the ears are on it.
I know the ears are not on it in
100%.
Star Trek. Like that's 100%. They're not on it in the Star Trek
Okay.
movie. I'm almost positive it's missing some other major detail. I was thinking it was the little LCD readout or the numerical readout, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong about everything else.
Well, it definitely could have broken off by that point.
That's true.
So, Star Trek 6
Wait, is Star Trek 6?
was 1991, man.
Holy
1991.
shit. I always assumed it was before Ghostbusters 2. So maybe it was made for Ghostbusters 2. I don't know.
I'm telling you, I think most of these props are made for Ghostbusters. Maybe with exception to the latent image sensor, because it is so... it's so up the alley of what modern props was doing in that time frame. Just crazy cool machines that, I know modern props also, they were responsible for the most important machine ever made.
Yeah.
It shows up
Star
in
Trek.
Star Trek maybe a dozen times or more. And all that is this big table-wide thing, and it has big kind of red tubes that light up and pulse and stuff. They're pretty cool. But as far as Ghostbusters props, I always feel like these things first show up in Ghostbusters and then show up in other places.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, these props that end up as rental props and that show up in a bunch of stuff. We consider them Ghostbusters props. But if they technically show up in more and have more screen time in Star Trek episodes or whatever, does that mean they're actually Star Trek props?
I would say if it was something like a medical tricorder that's in every single episode of Star Trek, and then it shows up in Ghostbusters, it'd be a Star Trek prop. But the Geiger Meter, I think, gets a lot more close-up screen time in Ghostbusters 2 than it does in Undiscovered Country.
I'm
going to have to go back and torture myself by watching Undiscovered Country.
for 3 seconds of footage.
For 3 seconds of
it's
awful
probably
footage.
Like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie.
Gosh. This sounds painful.
But the Geiger meters, it's another one of those props that's just like, I want one so bad, but it just seems so intimidating. I have a real scrub and buffer, and I have a casting of a real scrub and buffer, but I don't have like a pre-done shell, like a throwing chicken or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just, it just seems intimidating. Like the scratch building, like converting a shell into the Geiger meter doesn't really intimidate me. It's the electronics portion of it, like I know nothing about electronics, and nobody makes a kit for them anymore as far as I'm aware. So.
Okay, so I found a better image on Spook Central's Facebook for the Geiger Meter in Undiscovered Country. And I don't know. The face has a lot more features. I don't think we ever get a good enough look at the face in Ghostbusters 2 to really ascertain what precisely is going on the face of the Geiger Meter. Looking at the screen capture from Undiscovered Country, not only does it have the numerical readout, but then it has like 2 LEDs on either side of that, and then an LED over that as well. So there seems to be a lot more going on with that than what a lot of the kits or people's replicas do.
Well, if it's missing the microphone,
and then of course I keep seeing. Well, that's what makes me wonder: is it a completely different prop that's still based off of a Redman?
I don't know. I mean, I remember Cyland had done a whole breakdown of it when he done his.
Well, luckily, Silent Props has never been wrong about anything ever.
Of course not. Yeah.
Just like us. Totally right about everything. We know everything.
Yeah, that's why I said it was in Star Trek 2, and it's actually Star Trek 6.
Yeah, you were
It
close.
was, in the same franchise at least.
Right, yeah, exactly.
If they ever do a sequel to They Live, I hope that they hire some Ghostbuster guys to make a couple of Geiger meters to use as updated communication devices.
That'd be a great That would be a hysterical throwaway gag.
That or a couple of answer the call PKE meters.
I liked the
Dude,
PKE
I
meters.
love
I thought they
the
were neat.
PKE meter.
I'm not sure about how fast the antennas spin on them, but they're overall
I feel like it's a
cool.
dangerous prop because if it starts to spin too fast, you're gonna whack yourself in the face pretty hard. But I
Like, and what happens if it's sitting on a table and it starts going off? Does it just like bounce around until like
maybe
they have that shot where they show it and it lights back up, but it's just so precariously placed so that its big spinning stupid antenna doesn't get interrupted by anything. But I'm like, if you have it laying on a table, it's like the most annoying vibration function on a phone, except it's your PKE meter and it flings itself off a table onto the ground and shatters.
maybe it starts to levitate like a
Though
helicopter or a drone.
It's not as dangerous as the PKE meter in the real Ghostbusters that when they ran the meter on, I think, the Necronomicon, the thing blew up in a minor nuclear explosion. I'm just like, that's not what you want your meter to do.
No, but I mean, I guess if it's the first time they've scanned it, you couldn't know.
I guess not. I don't know.
We're
Let's
almost
see,
out of time, and we haven't even talked about the slime scoop, which is probably like my favorite hand prop from Ghostbusters 2.
Oh, the slime scoop. No, we got some minutes here. Let's talk about that slime scoop.
Okay,
again, this is another prop that Martin Bryce has replicated on Shapeforge and did a gorgeous job, especially for a prop that there's so little screen time that's discernible. But he found, some shots of it behind the screens and stuff like that, and was able to kind of pick the details out. We know that it has that large fishing reel on the slime scoop.
Yeah, which is some kind of like Australian brand, I believe.
Yeah, but it is such a cool prop.
Well, Jack Dowd did one first, right?
Jack Dowd did one. Yeah, Jack Dowd made one first, and I think you can still see his on his website, which is Bloody Props.
Bloody Plastic.
Or Bloody Plastic.
Yeah.
Bloody Plastic.
That thing, I just remember, the research that went into that, and again, staring at screen caps and trying to identify all the weird little components and stuff,
Jack Dowd did an amazing job of identifying components and got a lot more real components on it, but I have to hand it to Martin. His build was a lot better. It was, at least visually, but all of his stuff was 3D printed. So Martin didn't get any of the real world parts, whereas Jack Dowd, of course, he's like us. He's trying to source a lot of the real world stuff, and he did a great job. Again, it's one of those Ghostbuster props that's over-engineered for its own good.
It's crazy the amount of work that went into what should be just a really simple thing.
Yeah. So the arm extends out, and then the cup opens and folds in over in itself, and then you wind it to pull it back in.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that the arm extends out by gravity?
I mean, it's just a monopod, so you've got to physically pull it open. I mean, I suppose if there were enough weight on the bottom, on the opposite side, yeah, it would probably open with gravity. But I don't think the scoop and all that stuff is enough.
No, I mean, not the scoop opening itself. Like, the scoop opening itself, I think, is motorized. But how about it extending out?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The arm itself is a monopod.
Oh, okay.
That you have to physically pull open.
Okay, gotcha.
Like I said, if there's enough weight on it, it would probably, if you held it straight down, it might open. But yeah, I mean, we even see Ray physically pull it open. I always, as a kid...
I have to go back and watch that scene now.
Yeah, you see him, he just kind of pulls it up, because they've got those little locking tabs to hold it, to lock it in place, whatever length, or to...
And then he cranks it back closed.
My thing, and something that's always kind of, I guess, stopped me from building one, and it may be a really stupid thing, because they may all look the same, I don't know, or relatively the same, is I'm always like, well, where am I going to find a vintage monopod from 1988 that looks right? But you can't even. I mean, it's covered by so much shit that like anybody's going to know anyway. But that's just the way my brain works. It's one of the things that's like tripod traps. Yeah, we can 3D print or scratch build the V-ring meter and all the stuff on top and get it really close, but where am I going to find accurate 1980
where am I going to find those
tripods? Do I have to 3D print those?
Oh God! Scratch build it.
Don't tempt me. I would probably attempt it if I really, 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 really wanted to.
Have you found the tripods for your?
My bunk cake Phoebe, potato masher things.
Your bunk cake meters.
No, but I haven't continued looking either. I've been so distracted by other projects and stuff that I haven't gotten back to that. One day though,
I wish we knew more about these things. I wish we knew where they were.
Yeah, the slime scoop. There was the miniature version. Like the scoop, the arm and the scoop itself were on display at one of the Planet Hollywoods. I think it was it Florida? Mm-hmm. Years and years ago. But, the full-size prop, like where the hell is that thing?
Yeah.
Did it get dismantled or just thrown away at the end of production? Or does somebody have it in their garage somewhere?
We're even talking about a prop that it may have not even actually opened. It might have just extended out and then drawn back in, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then they used a miniature version for the actual close-up of the scoop opening and closing.
I believe so, yeah. Or for the insert shot of it dipping into the slime, if nothing else.
Right.
Which always struck me as a weird thing.
Trickery.
It seemed like a weird thing to make a miniature of. Like, why wouldn't you just dip the full-size prop in slime?
Maybe because they couldn't get the scoop to open.
Yeah, I guess it's true. But it's always been one of my favorite props from Ghostbusters 2. To me,
Jarris and Ron did costumes based off of that scene. It's a fantastic prop.
Yeah, they were very
loose,
very loose. They weren't like accurate or anything by any means. They were just something to do for fun. We even we bought these really shitty safety vests from Lowe's, while we were there at MegaCon in Florida, and I don't remember if Jarris had his hard hat or if we had to buy his hard hat there, but we they've got some kind of labels on Egon's helmet, and we didn't know what it said, so we just bought a bunch of those stick-on letters, and we put Ziggy's jackhammering 1-800-EGON on the side, which I love. It's my favorite thing ever. And then Ron, we didn't have he had a hard hat, but we didn't have a light on it, and so we went over to the T-Rex Cafe where they sold little souvenir miners helmets with lights on them, and we yanked the light off of the front of that and super glued it to the front of a full size. That's how loose they were. But we had fun.
That's pretty loose.
It was really fun.
It's a fun costume.
Yeah.
Well, good. All right. So I think we had a nice, relaxing conversation, Austin.
It's fun to just kind of shoot the shit about random stuff.
Had to shoot the shit. Had to kind of decompress from the excitement and the wear of our repeat sessions there on the Proton Pack. I'm glad.
Our next one is a 4-part series on the Ecto-1. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know what we're talking about next.
We'll figure it
out. I don't know. Should we maybe have people vote on it? Because that could be fun.
Sure, why not?
Okay, so we'll look. We had a lot of fun with, I think, the roundtable questions.
Yeah, that was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot. And I think people enjoyed kind of participating also.
Yeah, so I like that kind of participation, especially since we are so kind of community-oriented, you and I. So we'll leave this up to our listeners, in which we will make a post starting with the release of this episode, on what we should talk about for our next episode. But if they also want to do like a freeform question episode or something like that, we'll put some options out there and leave it up to our listeners. This episode, however, we're going to go ahead, I think, and wrap it up. We're talking about, Ghostbusters 2 hand props. Again, Black Firehouse podcast. If you like us, feel free to give us some positive reviews over on Spotify or on the RSS feed or on applepodcasts.com, I think is what it is, because apparently it's not on iTunes, which I'm really confused about. I don't know how any of that works, so I got to do a little bit more research. Craig, help me.
We're old. We don't know how to do anything.
We're old. We don't know how any of this works. We can barely record, as it took us 3 weeks to do 2 episodes.
We can build unlicensed nuclear reactors and accelerators from hardware store parts, but we don't know how to work Apple.
Exactly. Guys, if you want to join in the conversation, you can join us over at Spengler's 1984 Workbench. Big thanks, of course, as always, to the Ghostbusters Reference Library, also on Facebook, for providing most of the reference that we look at during our shows. You can like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Any final thoughts before we sign off there, Austin?
Where am I going to find those vintage tripods? If anybody's got a lead on vintage 1980-something tripods that are screen accurate to the tripod traps in Ghostbusters 2, drop me a line. Slide into my DMs.
There we go. Perfect. If you can find vintage tripods, and we mean that as actual tripods, not old men who consider themselves tripods.
Oh, God.
Hey, man, you opened the gate. I had to clarify so we don't get some weird DMs.
Scratch all of that. Go out there and build something.
Please, God, don't DM us. Well, this is Dan Harshman for the Black Firehouse podcast with
Austin Young.
Again, encouraging you to go out and build something. Have a great day, guys.
As a duly designated representative of the city, I order you to cease any and all supernatural activity and return forthwith to your place of origin or to the nearest convenient parallel dimension.
Okay, so I'll see you later, huh? I'll give you a call.
Everything was fine with our system until the power grid was shut off by Dickless here.
2 in the box!
Ready to go.
We be fast and
They be slow.
Ray has gone bye-bye, Scott. What have you done left?
for whatever reasons, Ray, call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that we were destined to get thrown out of this dump. For what purpose? To go into business for ourselves.
Boy, the superintendent's gonna be pissed.
We're ready to believe you.